with Dennis Fithian and Brian Chapman.
He represents the mitten by way of Penn State. When Chapman gets to talking sports, the people can't wait. He represents the mitten. Be a true EMU, but cut Dennis in the fall and his veins bleeding blue. They got respect around the state when that light turns red. So don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fith chapter. Brian Chapman. Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spitting the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all captured in the Fith chapter.
All right, welcome to the Fith chapter. I am Brian Chapman. He is Dennis Fithian. We're ready to go for episode number 49. Surprising to see that, well, I guess not surprising, but it's amazing to see that we're already in our 25th week of the show.
Yeah, and I know you didn't have a good day Saturday, Chap, but I hope you had a good day yesterday. It was your birthday, so belated birthday to you. What'd you turn, 30?
Yeah, not quite. I turned 36, and actually I
36,
was
all right.
Yeah, I was over at my parents' place on Saturday celebrating my birthday with my parents and my sister. I got sushi. The rest of my family doesn't like sushi, even though they've never tried it, so they had other Japanese delicacies. And obviously the highlight for me was supposed to be a Penn State victory over Indiana. It looked like it was going to be, a moral loss of a victory by squeaking one out at the end, and then we couldn't even get that. So that is, it was good to spend time with my family, but it was a very disappointing birthday celebration 2 days before my birthday. That's for certain.
We got a chapter dedicated all to Penn State coming up in the third chapter.
I bet you can't wait, and I bet your mug is ready too.
We're ready for it. I'm ready for all of it, but yeah, I am looking forward to the third chapter.
Yeah, well, definitely want to thank everybody who is watching today on YouTube, Facebook Live, and Twitch, and to those who are listening to the podcast via Apple, Google, and Spotify. Make sure that you subscribe, you like, and you participate in each show by sending in your feedback via Facebook and or via YouTube. Dennis will be reading it throughout the show. Let's first, though, take a look at today's book. And as you can see in the second chapter, we're talking a little Michigan State football because their day was just about as bad as mine. I guess you could say at least Penn State lost to a respectable football team, but Michigan State was a double-digit favorite and lost to RATgers of the Spartans, the Big Ten's worst team. Did RATgers pass the torch to Michigan State for the bottom feeder? In the third chapter, a couple of controversial plays led to Penn State ruining my day. Is their season pretty much done? In the fourth chapter, the same old Lions are on a 2-game winning streak. They're riding high as Patricia and Quinn look to save their jobs. And in an effort to save their jobs, earlier today they made a big trade. Are they now serious NFC playoff contenders? We've also got the major wager, and in the fifth chapter, World Series Game 6 is tonight. Are the Dodgers going to close out the season by taking out the Rays, or will we get another World Series game, Game 7, tomorrow night? First, though, we start off with the first chapter, and that takes us to Michigan football. And Big Ten football's back. I think a lot of Michigan football fans are saying Michigan football's back, not just because they're on the field, but because they got to win. They got to win on the road against a ranked team. And it was to the surprise of me and you, because both of us predicted Minnesota to win that game. But they steamrolled them 49-24. I don't think either of us thought that they'd be without their kicker, their punter, and their other kicker. But now with Penn State losing to Indiana, Wisconsin losing their starting quarterback for 21 days due to coronavirus testing positive, the question is, Dennis, are the Wolverines the second best team in the conference?
Yeah, I think they could be. I think with all the circumstances, just after 1 week, Minnesota didn't have two of their offensive linemen in either. They had to miss that game. So that was a big factor. But, even factoring all those things in, Michigan, it was worth the wait, man. They looked fantastic. Now, I'd say I was as critical as anybody. I mean, I look at him and I was wondering, like, a new quarterback, 4 new offensive linemen, a lot of skilled players. I mean, the running backs, they were the known quantity, but most of the wide receivers weren't. And to see him come out and just Joe Milton, man. Joe Milton has a real calming effect. I don't know what it looked like to you, but, he's such a giant of a player. And then he goes out there, man. He was, calm hand, poised, collected, all of those things. And he just had a real, he had a sense of he had his hands on the controls. And, when you have your most important position, you have a guy like that, and he comes out and has a debut like that, you should be excited if you're a Michigan fan. And, they got a lot of playmakers on defense, and I think they got an additional one now. We knew about, Daxton Hill in the back and the two guys up front, Kwity Paye and Hutchinson. But, now Michael Barrett, he jumped off the screen, made play after play. So, yeah.
And had a big play on special teams.
Had a couple, recovered a fumble, had the return, the 66-yard return. He was fantastic. Filled the hole, hit, made that big play to cause the fumble, and got a touchdown on it. So, yeah, difference makers, that's the name of the game in college football, and he looks like he's one. So it couldn't be it was a fantastic opener for Michigan, considering that it was on the road and with the numbers. Michigan had struggled on the road against top 25 teams, and so all of those things, they checked a lot of those boxes. I'm one that doesn't, start talking about, they're going to beat Ohio State, and you're already, talking about.
But you're thinking it.
Team. Well, you got to answer the questions. I mean, I'm not on the team. It doesn't matter for me. We're just taking it one game at a time. It's like, okay. No, I don't think that if they were playing Ohio State this week, I'd pick them to beat them. That's a long ways away, and you know what? They got a lot of games here, and the way things have gone the last few years. But I'm really encouraged, and Michigan fans should be, excited to the moon. It's the way they looked.
Yeah, I think encouraged is the appropriate way for Michigan fans to look at it. The offense looked good. Honestly, they didn't have to do a whole lot offensively to win that game because they got some help with flipping the field with special teams on that play we talked about from Barrett. The other play from Barrett where they got the defensive touchdown, and they had the short field a couple of times. They had the fake punt. That was a disaster. So the offense didn't need to necessarily carry the load. They obviously didn't need 49 points to win that game, and all the 49 points weren't directly due to the offense. But the offense didn't go out there and make mistakes. You didn't see Joe Milton turn the ball over. I was concerned about how he would fare in the coldest game he had ever participated in, and he, despite being from Florida, didn't look like he was from Florida. He passed the ball with ease. Certainly he didn't look like, Graham Mertz or Justin Fields or Trevor Lawrence out there. But didn't go out there and make mistakes. I think he had a drop or two, and certainly running the football, he was a weapon as well. I mean, he wasn't Denard Robinson, but he's going to be able to pick up first downs from Michigan throughout the season. He did that throughout the game against Minnesota, a team that was good but not great, especially without their special teams players. And I think that when you consider the 3 losses that they suffered in the wide receiving core with Black, who wasn't a big factor last year, Donovan Peoples-Jones, and Nico Collins, and Ronnie Bell being the only real respectable receiver that they had returning, and he was actually the only receiver that had over 2 catches in the game on Saturday. The fact that they were able to spread it around, give a guy a catch here, a couple guys a catch there, and just move the ball around. Offensively, getting a lot of weapons involved, I think is very encouraging, like you said, for the Michigan offense as the season goes along.
Yeah, I liked them. Every time Minnesota did something, Michigan answered right back. I mean, that's a mark of a good team, and you're watching it gives you a lot of confidence. They had that block punt, but then 70 yards right down the field. Minnesota kicks a field goal, they're coming right back down, scoring, and also they took advantage. You mentioned those kickers. At first, they went with the pop-up kick, and Michigan's over there calling a fair catch. The other time on a squib, they're getting out of the way of it. When you have that big of a deficiency out there where they couldn't kick the ball, you got to take advantage. And then they finally did. They're like, hey, let's make sure we're getting the ball over the 40. And then, the one time Barrett, took it 66 yards, that was huge. So you got to pounce on things like that. 2 things that you look at, they've got 2 field goal kickers that have had experience in games, but missing 3 kicks. That's something that, kickers are streaky. That's going to be in the back of your mind. Harbaugh, I know they must have a competition during the week to see who's going to end up being the kicker. But sometimes you thought Nordin's the long guy. They had Moody out there. Not in this particular game. I'm talking about last year. So that's something that, that needs to be settled to make you feel good if you're going to, compete for a championship. And then the other thing's the run defense. They've got the players here. Let's see if they can, get some guys.
Yeah, they didn't stop Ibrahim.
No, he's a pretty good back, but you got to shut that down a little bit more. And Cam McGrone, who I think is a difference maker too, he had a club on his hand, so maybe if he can get that back. And Daxton Hill was out for I think the entire second half, but it looks like he's going to be good to go. So that's huge. And taking on a Michigan State team that looks like that they're the worst in the league.
Yeah, they're looking pretty bad right now. But in terms of the question, is Michigan the second best? I'm actually going to stick with the Wisconsin Badgers, despite the fact that they had the coronavirus positive test for Graham Mertz. And if you missed Graham Mertz on Friday night, he was 13-13 in the first half as a redshirt freshman filling in as the backup to Jack Cohn, and he finished the game 20 of 21. I forget what the final score was, but Wisconsin blew out Illinois. I think it was something like 49-7 or something like that. And it was a big shock to find out the next day that he tested positive for coronavirus, because you're thinking, is this real? Could something like this happen so quickly after his debut? And he had the second test to confirm it, and they found out that yes, he was positive. And they found out in addition to that, the third string quarterback tested positive. So they're going to have their fourth string quarterback as the quarterback for the next couple of games. And I want to share with you guys a couple of tweets regarding the Wisconsin situation. This is from Adam Rittenberg of ESPN. He says 2 things on Wisconsin COVID in the Big Ten. Longer quarantine is to rule out heart issues and give players time to catch up conditioning-wise to prevent injury, because in the Big Ten, coaches have to sit out for 10 days, but players have to sit out for 21 days. That's 3 weeks. He also wrote, the 21-day clock starts from the first positive test, so if Mertz tested Saturday, could return from Michigan on the 14th. And you're probably thinking, wait a second, how could he play on Saturday if he tested positive on Saturday and then return for the Michigan game? The Big Ten is biased toward the Badgers because they want them to beat Michigan. But remember, the Badgers played on Friday night, so he got tested the very next day on Saturday. If the Badgers had played on Saturday and he didn't get tested until after the game, then he would be out for the Michigan game. Additionally, there's this tweet from Jeff Patricia that Adam Rittenberg retweeted, said the Badgers game at Nebraska may not be played, stay tuned. And Rittenberg said Nebraska is still preparing for Saturday's game to go on as scheduled, I'm told, but Wisconsin would be the team to say it cannot play. We'll be monitoring. And that to me says that they're concerned about this potentially being an outbreak like we've seen with the Titans, like we've seen with the Marlins and the Cardinals in baseball. We know that Wisconsin's one of the biggest coronavirus hotspots in the nation right now. But the reason that I have Wisconsin still at the number 2 team is because with Nebraska being such a bad football team, with Purdue being kind of shaky, they're going to have Rondale Moore back when they play. If Wisconsin's defense and their running game can get them to just squeak out a couple of field goal victories in the next 2 weeks, they'll have Graham Mertz back for the game against Michigan. Now, if we find out that they have a super spreader team and all these guys start testing positive in the next couple of days, then they're not going to have those guys back in 21 days when they face Michigan, in which case Michigan will dominate them and clearly be the number 2 team in the conference if things continue as they are right now.
Yeah, I wanted, 21 days seems, I don't want to say punitive, but when you just look at what other leagues have done, that's such a long time. You don't want to see anybody miss a game. But the first thing you want everybody to just get back and get healthy and feel good. I mean, that's what you say. That's the way you feel about everybody that comes down with COVID. But the one thing about this, okay, yeah, he's going to be back that day, but is he going to be able to practice the day before? I mean, is he going to miss 3 weeks? He's got to be isolated. I don't know exactly what the protocols say. Is Saturday morning he's got to stay away from today to that Saturday morning against Michigan, he's going to wake up and then, okay, you're back, you're up and you're ready to go. That
well,
seems like a
let me
tough
put
timeline.
that. Let me put that tweet back up, the first one, because
right.
it says his first nugget is longer quarantine is to rule out heart issues, and that was a big story the last 24 hours, and give players to catch up conditioning-wise to prevent injury. So if they're giving them time to catch up conditioning-wise to prevent injury, that suggests to me that they will be allowed to get in good shape and train. Does that mean practice with their teammates once they have a negative test? Perhaps if he has a negative test a week from today, he can practice for 2 weeks. I think that's probably the case, but I don't think that I think that suggests right there that they're not going to let Mertz get out there without with having sit in his basement eating chips for the last 3 weeks. That's not going to happen. He should be in good enough shape as long as his heart is okay.
Yeah, well, that would be good. Like a week before, if he passes all the protocols, if he would be able to practice that week, that would be good. I mean, yeah. I get that. That sounds like good news. We do have some feedback as we started out with Michigan. We're going to get to Michigan State, Penn State, and the Lions' big trade, and another big wager, a major wager coming up here. I look at Boulder Brown, old Wally there on Facebook, who says the Michigan offensive line played really well. They sure did for guys. I mean, they've got some veteran guys in there, but guys that really don't have a lot of experience and a lot of starts there. So 4 new starters, and they couldn't have looked any better. I mean, they were blowing holes open. Charbonnet on that 70-yard run was untouched. You're looking at some of these guys pulling around. They just look really good, putting their hats on the defenders. You get 5 guys there, and even if it's Minnesota, and even if they aren't any good, if you were watching them practice, you're saying, wow, man, these guys are firing off the ball. They're working as a unit. So, yeah, everything to like there. I can see why they got great grades in that game against Minnesota, because they look good.
Yeah, outside of that first drive where Joe Milton was sacked after he dropped back like 7 or 8 yards, it didn't seem like there was a heck of a lot of pressure on Milton all day. So that portends well for the Wolverines moving forward offensively.
Yep, we've got a couple people here wishing you happy birthday, belated.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Mark, who puts in a couple exclamation points on it. Keith is giving you a happy B-Day to Chap. What happened to Penn State? He adds, we'll get to that coming up in the 3rd chapter. Milton is going to be good, but unless he's super special, he's going to be learning on the job and will make some mistakes. How he plays against the better defense remains to be seen. And
yeah, he's still got to face Wisconsin's defense, Penn State's defense, Ohio State's defenses. Those secondaries, those defenses will be better than Minnesota's defense. And it remains to be seen what those mediocre wide receivers are going to be able to do against those defenses. But so far, so good against a team that was projected to be top 25, projected to be perhaps second best in the West. They didn't stand much of a challenge for Michigan offensively.
Yeah, well, I don't think Michigan thinks that their wide receivers are average. I think they think Ronnie Bell's pretty good. Yeah. I think Giles Jackson. I mean, if you want to call him average right now, I get what you're saying.
Well, I like Bell, but the other guys have not proven anything. And,
well, that's fine.
And when you look at what they did,
I think unproven over average. Average sounds like you're trolling them a little bit.
No, it's not a diss. If I was going to diss them, I'd say they're terrible. They haven't proven that they're terrible or great. And so, and none of them made a whole bunch of great plays on Saturday. They look, they're average so far. They're certainly unproven.
Yeah. Okay. Unproven. I'm with you on that. Yeah. Look, it's the same thing with Joe Milton. Like, you don't want to go. People immediately want to say, a star is born, and this guy's gonna, run roughshod through the rest of the Big Ten, and
Well, given Jim Harbaugh's track record, he's already got the shot based on one game to be the best quarterback that he's coached at Michigan.
Well, it was their best opener offensively, that's for sure. And what's not to like? I mean, when you get a guy that if you just go to like the basic playground principles, you got a guy that looks bigger, stronger than everybody else. I mean, it's like, hey, yeah, that's the guy you want to pick. And you know what? He is. He looks bigger, stronger, and faster than everybody else. And then he went out there and, for a first game, he just, he had it. You're looking for that it. Very calm, very poised, collected, all those things. And to me, it was just a real calming effect. And this is the way to play football in 2020. if you are going to win and you want to play with the big boys, you got to go out there and you got to light the scoreboard up. And they might have a quarterback that, I'm not saying that he's ready to, duel with Fields and Trevor Lawrence and, all of that, like bring him on. But
I'll duel Tanner Morgan.
He did. Yeah, you know what? We know that he can throw the ball with distance, but you know what? He's got a cannon. You'd like to see that. But, all the other things, like, the way he ran the ball, just the way he went through everything. And even when he took he took the sack, but he
that was like his one blunder of the game. That was about it.
Sometimes there was a three-man rush, and that's a pretty good defensive lineman. Do you want him forcing the ball down the field like some people will do, or you give a wide receiver an end around and give them an option to throw? They're always running. You give a running back like a guy from Atlanta or Penn State, tell him he can win the game to get a first down. They're going to the end zone. Sometimes a sack actually is a good play. That was a backhanded. That was a shot at you.
Yeah. Let's turn the page to the second chapter.
Well, that gets us to the other extreme. Michigan State goes out against the Rutgers Scarlet Knights, and they lay a gigantic egg. And Mel Tucker in his debut couldn't have gone any worse. What did you think of if you were going to talk about Michigan being the second best team in the Big Ten? Are we ready to say Michigan State is the worst team in the Big Ten?
Well, it's certainly not going to be RATgers. I think the competition is going to be between two Big Ten East teams, and that's between the Spartans and the Maryland Terrapins, who lost to Northwestern like 49-3 or something like that. Both of us picked Michigan State to win. I thought that Rutgers was going to cover, but I think
we both took Rutgers in the points.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, that's the right. Yeah, I don't know how many people were picking the Scarlet Knights outright.
Well, here's what I'll say. On Friday, I went to the casino and I said, you know what? Plus 370. Let me throw a few dollars on that because
throw up that receipt. We all want to see that one.
I've got it on my nightstand over there.
Okay.
But I said, you know what? Plus 370, 17 new players, a proven coach where Mel Tucker isn't a proven coach, in Greg Schiano. Why not? And so I did put some money on the money line, and I'm happy about that. I wish the Penn State would have covered, but at least I got that. But this was a train wreck. It was a wake-up call, and it was a snooze button moment for Michigan State fans, and here's why. It was a train wreck because obviously the game was a disaster. You lost to RATgers, who is perennially the worst team in the conference. They hadn't won a conference game since 2017.
21 games.
Yeah, 21 games. They turned the ball over 7 times. How do you turn the ball over 7 times? And it was also a train wreck because they were 2 for 4 on fourth downs, which means that they turned it over. If you add the times they turned it over on downs, that's 9 turnovers. And on top of that, Mel Tucker's talking about them being a tough team. They ran it 39 times against RATgers for 50 yards. It was a wake-up call because this was supposed to be an easy cupcake win for Michigan State against a bad team in a home game. And you win that by double digits. Maybe you look a little bit ugly because Michigan State's a bad football team and you move on. But they lost that game at home by double digits. And when you do that, it's a wake-up call because you have to wonder, if you're a Spartan fan, is my team going to win a game? This looks like they could be 0-8. They could be 1-7. And I think that Spartan fans have to realize this isn't just another bad team like they've had the last few years under D'Antonio. And I think that it's also fair to wonder right now, is Tucker the right man for the job? And it's a snooze button moment because you know that when you lose at home to RATgers by double digits, even though they got new transfers, even though they have a new coach, the season's over, and it's time to look forward to next year. There's not much of a point. I mean, you can watch the games, but there's no reason to get excited. You know you're going to get stomped by Michigan. You're going to get stomped by most of the teams you face this year. I mean, you can point to all these things and say, hey, there's a pandemic. Maybe they'll just cancel the last 4 games of the year, and if they do, what will it matter anyway for Michigan State? But this is, I mean, Michigan State fans need to snooze on this season and look forward to next year and hope that by the end of the year there's some sort of bright spot, because there was nothing in the game on Saturday.
Well, there was a reason that you didn't hear a peep out of Michigan State this whole summer about, hey, yeah, we want to play or doing any marches or getting behind the coaches. They didn't want to play. Mel Tucker didn't
They knew what they had.
Well, you know what? Mel Tucker, it's he's getting paid, so you don't have to worry about Mel Tucker here. But he got dealt terrible cards. Like, D'Antonio left him high and dry and left him a big heaping garbage the way he, grabbed the money and then took off. And, Mel Tucker had to deal with this. And then, came the pandemic. I mean, he was already going to be behind the eight ball. Then the pandemic, like, I think Mel Tucker, I feel like he went up to the players before the games, like, oh, hey, 35, nice to meet you. I'm your coach. Like, they couldn't, they're putting in a new system. The players were leaving. They couldn't get a quarterback. And, they got three guys and, they don't want any of them. They couldn't get anybody out of the transfer portal. And, RATgers went out there, really punched him in the mouth. When you turn the ball over that much, it's a sign. You say it's a sign of a poorly coached team. They didn't have much of a chance to coach the team. And, it really showed. I mean, that's what it looked like. Remember who did BYU, was it Navy right out of the gate, like the first game, and Navy hadn't done any tackling or anything? It was like, wow, they look like the worst football team ever. You can tell teams that are prepared and have been out there and getting after it. And Michigan State doesn't look like that at all. And I mean, the end of the season can't come fast enough. But this should be on Mark D'Antonio. Mark D'Antonio, I think, is going to be a Hall of Fame coach one day, get inducted into the College Football Hall of Fame. But this is a blemish on him. He left this team, and when they're getting smacked around and getting rolled up by 30 or 40 points on Saturday by Michigan, his team, the pride before the fall and all that, just remember, I'd spend $10 to have a Zoom on following around D'Antonio to get the look on his face all game long on Saturday. Let's see that. I hope he enjoys that 3.2 or whatever he took, just to get to the finish line before he pulled the chute, because he screwed the university that he professed to love so much.
Mm-hmm. Well, look, I think that it is fair to put some blame on D'Antonio because he recruited pretty poorly after getting those Big Ten championships and whatnot, beating Ohio State, beating Michigan all those years. You would think that you'd be able to translate that into maybe not top 5 classes, but top 10 and 15 classes, so that you would have talents coming in year after year. But despite the successes that he had, he was never able to translate that into getting consistent 4-star and 5-stars to MSU, and he left the cupboard bare for Mel Tucker. But I'm not going to put all the blame on him, because the cupboard was even more bare at RATgers. It was a heck of a lot more bare because they hadn't won a game since 2017. And Greg Schiano came in there and he said, look at this sorry group of squad players that Chris Ash gave me. I'm not just going to get a transfer quarterback or a transfer lineman or this or that. I'm going to go get myself 7 transfer players from the Big Ten alone and 10 more transfer players overall, 17 transfer players. I'm going to remake this entire team, and I'm going to coach them up, and we're going to go into Spartan Stadium and beat them. What did Mel Tucker do? I get that he came in a little bit later, but he still had a chance. It's not like he came in June. He still had the chance to meet these guys. I know you were exaggerating. He still had a chance to coach these guys up because nobody had a spring practice for the most part, and he comes out and loses by double digits at home. Greg Schiano is a far better coach. He's a far better roster creator, at least so far. Mel Tucker should have at the very least got himself a transfer quarterback and couldn't even get the backup in Nebraska who RATgers got, and put this squad together. If I'm a Michigan State fan, I'm not just putting this all on Mark D'Antonio. I'm saying Mel Tucker had a chance to at the very least be competitive against RATgers, and he couldn't do that. I am, if I'm a Michigan State fan right now, wondering if we got the wrong coach.
Yeah, well, I thought it was telling that they weren't able to go out and get a quarterback. They lost out on the transfer to Indiana to Northwestern. They were in on some other guy, but I don't think they like any of the 3 guys that they got there. And that's the most important thing. And to strike out when you're Michigan State, to not be able to bring a quarterback in. Ramsey's the guy that ended up going to Northwestern. Yeah, I mean, that guy's a pretty accomplished QB. Like, it would be a lot different if, you had that guy at the controls. But
they couldn't get a yard and a half per carry on the ground against RATgers. I mean, what kind of tough-nosed team are you trying to build? And if your offensive line is an issue, and you knew that coming in, Mel Tucker, having coached in the SEC, why didn't you try to bring in some SEC backups to start at Michigan State, like you saw Rutgers doing from other schools? Something could have been done. A lot of things could have been done to at least make the game competitive. And for Tucker to do nothing, that's embarrassing. I don't know if it's a fireable offense, but it's a reason for Michigan State fans to say, perhaps we hired the wrong coach. I get that there was nobody out there, but we can't compete with Rutgers.
Well, yeah, let's not go overboard on one game. Like, yeah, I'm sure that you do have those feelings if you're a Michigan State fan that you might have the wrong guy. But, you know, if there's anybody that's going to get a free pass this year during a pandemic, it's going to
he can't get a pass for this. He can get a pass for having a bad season and going 2-6 or something like that, which is what I suggested last week. I said they were going to go 2-6. You don't get a pass for this. You lost to Rutgers, and both coaches were taking over new teams. Greg Schiano was a heck of a lot more prepared, and his cupboard was more bare. When I think of bare cupboards, I think of Michigan State having, you know, some old dusty Rice Krispies from 6 years ago and a moldy banana. When you opened up that Rutgers cabinet, it was nothing. But at least Greg Schiano had the sense to go to the food pantry and pick up something. Mel Tucker did nothing. He said, I'm going to starve.
Yeah, you know, the thing I was thinking of watching that game is, you know, Tennessee was trying to hire Schiano, and it was like people online, like alums and message board people, ran him out of Knoxville before they were able to hire him. Like, we don't want this guy. I mean, he coached with Urban Meyer at Ohio State. He has a stint with Belichick. Was he with Urban or was Saban too? I mean, this guy's been a head coach for 13 years.
Well, they were saying at Tennessee that they thought that perhaps when Schiano a long time ago was on Joe Paterno's staff, he might have known something about the boys and the showers and all that. And they said, we don't want to be within 10 feet of that. And that's why I think Schiano hasn't gotten a job anywhere but Rutgers.
Good point. I forgot about that, but that's a good one to bring up. You want some of the feedback now?
Yes.
All right. We go to Facebook. Got people watching here. The feedback comes in live chat on YouTube here, and Frank says smart betting by Chap. Key says good points from Chap, but I still give you a bit of a pass because of COVID and some bad luck. Tucker didn't get the transfers, but this season is going to be very odd. Let's see how many games Rutgers wins this year.
More than Michigan State.
Yes, I think that's a fair thing to say right now, as we watch them play on Saturday. And a tough, you know, the Matt. You know, let me ask you. It's a quick aside. Like, I hate Matt Millen because of him being a general manager for the Lions, and I hate William Clay Ford for extending him for 5 years, and then him refusing to leave. You know, that whole, it was torture with him as a general manager. And, you know, I hate him on the broadcast, too. Like, now, you know, Gus Johnson and Joel Klatt, you know. Yeah, I mean, they're doing the Ohio State game. That's much more entertaining for me. And then I got to go over to Beth Mowins and Matt Millen, who both repeat each other. I don't know, like, if that's the best that they got out there going on. It's like, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, no, it's not the best, which is why they were doing Michigan State versus RATgers.
Yeah, but you know what? I feel like there's got to be something better out there. But I know I'm biased towards Matt Millen, and I just wonder if other people think that as well when they're watching. Like, oh, yeah, it's just because, you know.
Well, that was one of my first thoughts. When I turned on the game, I was like, oh, Michigan State, not only do they have to have a terrible start to the season, but they've got Matt Millen broadcasting their first game. And then to make it even worse, they lost.
Yeah, some of the stuff that he says during the game is wild. It's like, oh my God, what's this guy?
And sometimes if you think something and then he says, you're like, uh-oh, maybe I was wrong, because he built an 0-16 team.
Yeah, Tucker's really good coach. He's saying that the whole. Oh, Tucker's
yeah, I think he said that. I think he did praise Tucker.
Bunch of times.
Yeah, well, we saw that worked out.
That's right. All right. Let's get to the third chapter.
Yep, and with that, we'll skip to the fourth chapter. No, all right, we'll do it. That takes us to Penn State football. And, Look, I wish I was excited to have a full chapter about my favorite team, but under these circumstances, I'm not. And that's because, as you all know, my favorite team was upset on Saturday by Indiana, only the second time in the history of this rivalry that Indiana has beaten Penn State. And there really wasn't much enjoyable about the game, but the two plays that everybody saw, everyone was talking about, whether you watched the whole game or you just saw the highlights, were are the highlights that I'm about to show you, and they happened late in the game. The first one was with $1:47 to go in the game. Penn State led by 1. Indiana had a touchdown, or had one timeout to go, and Penn State had the ball at the 14-yard line. All they needed to do was get inside the 4, take a knee, and then they could run out the clock. And with that 1-point lead, here is what took place.
They give it to Devin Ford. He shoots through the hole to the 10, to the 5. Way to the goal line. Touchdown, Penn State. And the Nittany Lions now an extra point for making it an 8-point game.
And you saw, look at the Indiana player raise his hands up and cheer and clap his hands. They're happy to see it happen. And so that was the first of the two plays. That was very controversial because obviously he could have won the game if that had happened. And then Penn State's defense went from dominant for 58 minutes to porous. They allowed Indiana to score a touchdown to get within 2. And then Michael Penix Jr. ran it in to tie the game up at 28, and they went into overtime. Penn State scored a touchdown, got the extra point. Indiana responded with a touchdown and decided to go for 2, and here is what transpired.
Steps up. And they're saying he is in.
Football back. I mean, what a great game. And it's all going to boil down to a couple
You
of
can
inches.
see the ball hit out of bounds first before it hits the pylon. And despite that, the referee said no. The other tip of the ball crossed the goal line first. Therefore, it's a touchdown, or at least said that there was indisputable visual evidence. You're never going to see a play like that ever again. But Dennis,
Why?
before we get to what this means,
Why wouldn't we see a play like that ever again?
well, I don't think we have ever seen a play like that, and for them not to have the perfect camera angle, for the ball to clearly hit out of bounds before it hits the pylon, but for them to make the argument that the other half of the ball crossed the barrier of the goal line before the ball hit out of bounds. I don't think you'll see a player reach for the goal line first, but for it to be right on that corner, out of bounds, inbounds, touchdown with the pylon there, I don't think you ever see a play like that again.
Well, I'm glad they didn't overturn it. With video replay, when it comes down, that's not in the category to me of indisputable, video evidence. Like, oh, that's crystal clear. You look at it a million times, and do I think that the ball looks like it hits the ground before it hits the pylon? It looks like that to me, but it's close to being simultaneous as well. And also, like, if they would have called it down, which would have been a real heartbreaker from Indiana, I don't think that they would have gone and overturned it. And that's the way replay should work. It shouldn't be over there like, did the ball turn a little bit? It should be, you should be bowled over, know for sure. And I know you're saying it's clear as day, but I want to go back, on the running
think
backs.
It was 50-50. I just wish it went my way.
Yeah, I completely understand that part. It's like for Michigan fans when they go back to JT Barrett, being called for the first down. Like, if Michigan would have, if the referee would have stepped in there and said that Ohio State was short, Ohio State fans would have been pissed off. And they said, "Oh, we got it. Look at it." Everybody would have been Zapruder filming. Look at this. All the Ohio State fans. It was a 50-50. It was the same thing. Michigan fans are always like, JT was short. I get that.
I think he was short too.
Yeah, I thought he was too, but I look at it, and I know, especially being on the road there with 95,000 Ohio State fans screaming their heads off there. and them being the champs, that way, I could see why it went that way. Just the same way I saw it going. I see why it went the Indiana way. But you know what? These running backs, I know now that all coaches, they're going to emphasize it a million times about, hey, make sure we get down if we ever get into a situation like that. But it reminds me of like when they have a wide receiver option, and these guys, and they get told all the time, don't throw it unless the guy's wide open. But you know what? More than half of the time the guy is covered and they end up throwing it. They just can't help themselves. And I think it's the same thing with running backs. Like, they their entire life, man, it's pay dirt. Let's get to the end zone. Let's get the stats. Let's get drafted, all these things. And then we saw it in the NFL, with Todd Gurley. It's the same thing, man. You get bonuses. You make money by throwing up the numbers. And, Gurley, who actually has gone down before, he wasn't able to do it either. So I give James Franklin a little bit of I don't know about a pass there. Maybe he should have taken the knee. I went through some of the clock management there. They did have a timeout, so you could have kicked that with 20 seconds to go. And, of course, that looks a lot that would have been the way to go now. I do wonder, because this is something that's come up in the NFL. So they went up by 7. And in the NFL, when you're up by 7 and you have the chance to kick the extra point or go for 2, the math now, the analytics say you go for 2.
Yes, they should have gone for 2.
You know what? I know that the analytics say that, but the reason I say no is that I watched the Penn State defensive line. Penix had really not been good all game long, and as soon as he dropped back the pass, like, he couldn't even get a pass off. The Penn State pass rush was just right in his lap. And because of that, I thought, hey, as my defense that I've watched the entire game here, that and Penix has been off, do I think that I want to just kick the extra point where I could keep them out of the end zone and for a 2-point conversion? To me, I thought that was the right move.
And I think they should have gone for 2, because if you get the 2-point conversion, the game is over. They're not going to score twice because it would be a 2-possession game. Obviously, Devin Ford should have taken the knee. But I'll say this, when Devin Ford got in the end zone, I was actually happy about it because I had Penn State minus 6.5. So I was thinking, not only did Penn State win, but we covered, and I'm going to have all this money on my birthday to go along with the RATgers money. And then I found out that not only do I not cover, but my Nittany Lions don't win.
Wow.
But yeah, so
that's a double whammy.
Yeah, that was a big whammy. But I'll say this, outside of the 2 plays we were discussing, obviously great athletic play by Penix, 50-50 ball. And, I guess there's technically the other tip of the ball could be past the barrier before or the ball hits out of bounds. But the bottom line is it should not have come down to that. Devin Ford made a mistake. That wasn't what made me so angry and depressed. Like I said, I was happy when he did it. Sean Clifford threw 2 terrible interceptions, and now you can see perhaps why I wasn't on him as much as a lot of other people were about him being such a great quarterback. The backup quarterback fumbled the ball in a wildcat play in the first half, and those 3 turnovers led to 10 Indiana points in the first half. And Penn State allowed just 87 yards of offense in the first half and still trailed 17-7 at the half thanks to those 3 turnovers. I hated that, but that wasn't what got my ire the most.
And the regulation?
No, that wasn't it either. What got my ire was the play calling. I mean, that's probably the most upset I've been with play calling out of a Penn State team for the entirety of a game that I think I can remember, because they got the new offensive coordinator, Kurt Soraka, from Minnesota, who led them to a great offense last year. I was pretty excited about what he could do this year, and that's all gone because his play calling was out of the 1970s. It was 3 yards in a cloud of dust. It seemed like about 90% of Penn State's plays or 90% of their runs were straight up the gut. They weren't trying to break it outside. You never saw them do an end around or a reverse to try to shake things up. They would hand it off to Devin Ford or one of those true freshmen, and it'd be somewhere between the tackles. And after that first drive, when Penn State got the touchdown, Indiana picked up on that pretty quickly. And then when it came to passing, everything was 5-10 yards down the field, and that's it. They never open it up. When you think about the Penn State offenses under James Franklin that have been so great with Trace McSorley as the quarterback, you got Trace McSorley just airing it out. There was a touchdown, and then boom, he hits the home run, pretends he hits a home run. There was none of that on Saturday because it was dink and dunk. They air it out more in high school games, and they hardly ever passed the football in high school games. They didn't attempt a pass, not even complete. They didn't attempt a pass of more than 20 yards until the fourth quarter, and when they did, on the first attempt, it was a 15-yard defensive pass interference penalty. The second time, it was a 60-yard bomb for a touchdown to Jahan Johnson. When you attempt passes down the field, good things happen. Sometimes you score. Sometimes it's a defensive penalty. Other times, it stretches the defense out. So if you do want to pound the rock between the tackles, there's not 8, 9 guys in the box already. But when your offense is that conservative, you give a team like Indiana an opportunity. When you're that conservative and it takes you 12 or 13 plays to get in the field goal range, and then you miss a field goal or you turn the ball over, you don't turn the ball over if one of those plays is a 40-yard touchdown drive on a 5-play drive. That frustrated me to no end. And you look at a bad pass thrown by Clifford for an interception that's inexcusable. You say, all right, maybe that's a fluke. Or the Wildcat turnover, that's a fluke. But when you have conservative play calling, I have to believe that that is an attribute of the Penn State offense that's going to be with them for the entirety of the year, and that's going to lead them to a blowout loss against Ohio State and lead them to probably about 4 wins this year.
All right, what about at the end of regulation? Ended up being a 57-yard field goal. I know you missed one in the first half.
2 in the first half.
A chip shot right at the end of the half that you got that turnover. But then, so you got some time there on the clock, and you elect to, instead of trying to get maybe 5-6 yards and make it like maybe a 50-yard field goal there, you try to crank it up for a 57-yarder. I thought they could have got a little bit closer there. There was a little bit of time, and why not? I
mean, at 57 yards, 52 yards, obviously every yard counts, and perhaps a couple yards would have made it. Would have made the field goal good, but you're talking about getting a couple yards when you're that far out, and with the possibility of not being able to kick it at all. I was okay with them attempting it because there wasn't really a good situation right there, and they shouldn't have been in that situation in the first place.
All right, let's look at some of the feedback on this game. Keith says, sorry, Chet. And he says, I could feel your pain, which is how I feel about the Lions all the way back since the 90s. Don't worry, Keith, we're getting to the Lions coming up here straight ahead in the 4th chapter. He's got some things. The Lions will eventually have that ending. They've got the most other sad endings. He's got crying emojis there.
That was a Detroit Lions ending, as a matter of fact. To lose a game when the ball clearly hits out of bounds before it hits the pylon, and they say it's a touchdown. I get it's 50-50, but that's a play that would absolutely go against the Lions. Absolutely.
Yeah, it felt like it was just the Nittany Lions, not the Detroit Lions, who made a big trade today. You ready to get to that?
Yeah, let's turn the page to the 4th chapter as quickly as possible.
Let's do it. That gets us to the Detroit Lions, who came up with a win down in Atlanta, their 3rd of the year, all on the road. And they, I don't know, did they shock the Falcons? They shocked most people by coming away with the last second of victory. And they also make a trade today with the Dallas Cowboys to pick up a defensive end and Everson Griffin. They give up a 6th round. It's conditional. Could go up to a 5th rounder. So lots to talk about with the Lions here. Let's first start with the game against the Falcons. How are you feeling about the W against the Dirty Birds here, Brian?
Well, even though I felt strongly about that Patricia push, I did say the Lions would lose to the Falcons and drop to 2-4 because I didn't think their secondary could hang with the Falcons wide receivers. Now, Julio Jones wasn't healthy enough to be dominant, and in a game that was so close, a 1-point game, that might have been the difference. But the defense of the Lions was pretty good. They won the game. I think you could say they deserved to win that game. They're 3-3, and I think it proves that death, taxes, Matt Patricia's teams will be 3 wins and 3 losses at some point during the season. 2018, 3-3, but tanked to 3-7 down the stretch. Last year, 3-1, but tanked to 0-9 down the stretch. This year, they're a bad football team that has gotten to 3-3. I don't consider them to be a contender whatsoever. The Patricia push is done. Their next game will be in November. And if you're a same old Lion Slappy, I hope that you enjoyed the great finish, the great throws by Stafford, 4 of 5 on the final drive. Kenny Golladay jumping up and down, making great catches throughout the game. The defense holding the Falcons to 22 points or whatever it was. I hope you guys enjoyed it because the Patricia push got them to 3-3. And I guess they're trying to extend that Patricia push by bringing in Everson Griffin. But it's over now. They're going to lose to Indianapolis. They got a 50-50 game against Minnesota because they've been pretty bad, but they'll probably rise up. They got a 50-50 game against Washington FT. They're going to lose to Carolina. A 50-50 game against Houston on Thanksgiving that they'll probably lose. Then Bears, Packers, Titans, Bucks are all losses. And they'll probably beat the Vikings in their final game of the year to destroy draft positioning. That's about 5 or 6 wins.
Yeah, look, I thought they were going to lose against Jacksonville, and I was half hoping they would, so they would fire everybody. And I was thinking a little bit of that this past week. If they got embarrassed by Atlanta, maybe they would sweep them all out, and I would have been fine with that. I would have been fine with trading anybody and, just thinking about draft position. I've been there a million times before. They got there to that sweet spot this year pretty quick where they get half the fan base, rooting against them and, half not knowing what to do and just staying loyal with them. But you know what? The way they played defense, it's weird. Here they were. I never thought in a million years they would be able to stop Kyler Murray. I would have bet. That's why I never bet the Lions. My first rule, never bet the Lions. I would have bet a lot on the Cardinals over the Lions a couple weeks ago, and the Lions defense played well, picked off Kyler Murray. He must have been licking his chops, thinking this will be an easy one. And then, they did the job against Jacksonville, stuffed the run, and ran the ball. Pretty good game plan, pretty good formula in any league to win. And then, the defense played well against Atlanta. Whatever they were trying there, taking the 2 safeties and really playing them that far back. I mean, that was Matt Patricia. If this was like the first game or the first year of Matt Patricia, this is like, hey, this is what a defensive guru does. This is what somebody who knows what they're doing, scheming things up. This is why you hire a guy like that. But, how can I say that now? Like, so he coaches his best game, with his back against the wall and, I'm ready to fire him. And, now he comes
against a 1-win team. Right.
I mean, he did a good job. They really did. And, I know they're like eyeballing that 7th seed now that you get an extra a playoff spot, and everybody's like, ooh, the 7th spot. Look, I would take this, like, if you told me right now, would I take a 7th spot right now for the Lions, or would I take 6 and 10? I would take the playoff spot just for an entertainment standpoint. Like, every year I'm always like, oh, I hope they lose this game for draft position. That gets tiring. Now, if they were in a spot where I thought that they could get Trevor Lawrence or something, that would be different. But
with 3 wins, they're done with that. They're done with Lawrence.
Right. No, and that's it. So would I rather have them, even if it's backing in, falling in, grabbing this 7th spot, and then, taking their chances of what's ever going to happen? They're going to go down to Tampa Bay and take out Tom Brady in the playoffs or something. I don't know. go to Seattle or something.
Green Bay.
I know how they. None of those seems, particularly like they're going to come out and win the game, but. Yeah, I just, I want them to entertain me. And, the last 2 games, like, the ending was entertaining against the Falcons. The Jacksonville game was boring, and it felt like it meant nothing. So they've at least piqued my interest here.
But that's what they do. This is how they suck you back in. Patricia gets you to 3-3 with that Patricia push. And he said, I'm a rocket scientist.
I don't care, like, now they made the playoffs, so now they're going to extend everybody. Now, that is that is a nightmare scenario. That would make me feel like Matt Milton 2.0 if Bob Quinn got some kind of extension and Matt Patricia was coming back.
Or just to come back.
It's just come back. As a 7 seed, or because they made the playoffs, or they lose the last game of the year, and, we almost made the 7 seed. I don't want any part of that.
Yeah. Well, here's the good thing. for Lions fans that don't want any part of that. Yes, they got Everson Griffin, and they need some help because the Lions are 28th in the league in sacks. They have 8 sacks right now, and I believe it's Okwara and Flowers that have 6 of the 8 sacks. And look, they didn't give up a whole lot to get Everson Griffin. It was a conditional 6th-round pick. He's not costing them a whole lot of money. It's a 1-year contract, so he's done after this year. They're not bringing in some super Pro Bowler because he only has 2.5 sacks in 7 games. Apparently he's been playing decent football, but not great football. But here's the reason you don't have to worry about them being contenders for a playoff spot. Number one, that December schedule is nasty. Like I mentioned, after Thanksgiving, Bears, Packers, Titans, Bucks, all 4 in a row. That looks like 4 losses. On top of that, you think, well, without even looking at the standings,
the Bears, I'm not automatically chalking that up as a loss.
Yeah, they're 5-2. The Bears are finding ways to win. Did they get smoked by the Rams? Yes, but the Rams are also 5-2. But here's
Lions already beat them.
DeAndre Swift said, no, we didn't. But here's the other thing. Without looking at the standings, you'd think, all right, the Lions are 3-3, 500 record. They're probably about the 7-8 seed right now. But that's not true. They're the 10 seed. The Rams, who just won yesterday, have the 7 seed at 5-2. The Saints are 4-2, have the 8 seed. The 49ers are the 9 seed at 4-3. The Lions at the 10 seed aren't even on the edge of the playoff picture. Not only do they have to play better, but they're in the more difficult conference right now. And when you look at how the NFC East is only going to have 1 team in, you look at how the entire NFC West is better than the Lions right now. Right now, you could say the Lions could get to 9-7 and still not sniff that 7 seed with the way things are shaking out in the NFC. So perhaps the worst scenario would be the Lions, win the next 4 games in a row, 5 games in a row to get to 8-3, and then lose their final 5 games to get to 8-8 and miss the playoffs. But they're not making the playoffs with how great the NFC is right now. No, forget it.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, as we get to the halfway point, we all talked about whether they should draft Tua or not. It sure looks like Justin Herbert was the pick, comparisons of Dan Marino and all of that.
Well, you know what else?
Looking pretty good.
The Lions need to start, or they need to stop this whole 50-50 thing with Adrian Peterson and DeAndre Swift. I think it's clear right now that Swift is the better running back, but you had Adrian Peterson with 11 carries, DeAndre Swift with 9. Kerryon Johnson didn't get a touch, which is interesting, so maybe he's just done. But why are you splitting carries 50-50 or giving, as a matter of fact, on Sunday, it was 55-45 Peterson over Swift. Swift is the game breaker. Swift is the more talented back. Does he struggle with blocking? Yeah, perhaps. But Swift needs to be the number 1 back right now.
I haven't liked how they've rotated their backs, the rhyme or reason that they've gone through them all year long. So you're preaching to the choir there. Yeah, I would go with Swift. Let's go to some of the feedback here. Griffin, I don't know. This one says, eye test. It looked like he scored. I guess that's going back to the Indiana game. Indiana, Penn State. That's from William Armstrong. He says, they've been bad since I've been watching for 40 years, and I wish the current GM and coach would get the hell out of here. He's got a Lions emoji. They won 2 games that they should have won, but I still can't believe they beat Arizona. Just to be clear, I never hate players. When I say I hate the Lions, I hate the owner, the GM, and the coach. I get it, Keith. Yeah, so that's it when it comes down to the Detroit Lions.
Well, and one other thing I want to throw in there. I know a lot of people are praising Matthew Stafford for the way he played, particularly at the end, but I think that it was mostly just what he did at the end because he was 4 for 5, 75 yards on that final drive, and we've seen that before. But in the first 58 minutes, 21 of 31, 265, 0 touchdowns. That's not impressive. You think about the team we saw coming into this game in the Falcons, and they weren't a good defensive team, and the Lions finished the game with 23 points. The Falcons this year are averaging 29.6 points allowed. So the Lions were a touchdown worse than an average offense against that Falcons team. That's a reason to not go all gung-ho about the same old Lions offense.
Yeah, well, I'm not going all gung ho.
I'm not saying you are.
No, I know. You know what? I thought watching that game that it was going to be like 2017, and they were going to run 10 seconds off, and they were reviewing it. And I thought, my God, this is a torture chamber. The Lions, and then they actually won that game, which it was weird and surprising all at the same time. So that's what they do. I always go in, to anything with the Lions, feeling like this is what I tell myself. So it's like kind of whatever makes you sleep good at night. I just always feel like I know it's kind of insanity, to follow this football team and to watch them and everything, because they, it always turns out the same, and the battles always sound the same. Everything that they do. So I mean,
same old Lions.
It really does. That's how it makes me feel all the time. All right. So now we get to the fifth chapter, right? And
we get to the major wager.
All right, let's do it. I'm going to you want to go first?
Yeah, and I'm going to do mine on the only sporting events on the calendar tonight. Thursday, I took the Giants plus 4.5 on Thursday Night Football, so I was right about that. Tonight, World Series Game 6. I'm going with the Rays to win straight up at plus 110. I don't know what's going on in the game, but I tweeted out earlier. I've got the Rays to win with Snell on the mound at plus 110.
Yeah, you know what? The way the Patriots have looked this year, they're going into Buffalo. It's not like the Bills have exactly been lighting it up lately, but I've gone. The Bills have been good to me this year. I forgot I think it's 3.5. The Bills are giving up. I'm ready to lay that. I'm going to go big. I've been kind of going 25, sometimes going 100.
You bet $1.75 last Tuesday.
I know. I'm now that I got kind of a bankroll. I'm kind of getting after it. I'm 200. The Bills minus 3.5, whatever it is today, against the Pats. That's the biggest bet of the year so far for me. I'm feeling pretty good about it.
They didn't cover against the Bills against the Jets, because they had 6 field goals and were 10.5-point favorites, winning 18-10. So
yeah, I didn't bet them that game.
That's true. That's true. But their offense, perhaps a little bit of in a slide right now. All right, to the fifth chapter we go, and that takes us to the World Series. And we definitely thank those of you out there who have stayed till the end. You can flip on the game after the fifth chapter ends. But over the weekend, a crazy ending to Game 4. Rays trailing by 1. A man on first and second, 2 outs. Looked like the Dodgers were going to go up 3-1. A single to center field. Run scores from second. Randy Arozarena got caught between third and home. He ends up coming around scoring because of a bobble in the outfield and then a bobble at the plate, or a lost ball at the plate. That makes it 2-2. Dodgers came back behind Kershaw to win 4-2 on Sunday. Today it's baggy-eyed Blake Snell and the Rays against Tony Gonsolin and the Dodgers. Who do you have tonight?
I don't know. Snell, last time out, looked pretty good to me. He looked like Sandy Koufax. I like the Rays tonight, and because of baggy eye Snell and the way he can deal, man. 7 scoreless. He's probably already knocked out of the game. 7 scoreless here, and really, I want to see. There would be nothing more dramatic to see Clayton Kershaw out there in a 7th game, situation. He's pitched well in the 2 games he's been out there, but who doesn't want to see Clayton Kershaw take them out in a Game 7? Who doesn't want to see a Game 7? Nobody. Let's go. Let's see it. I'm going with the Rays tonight.
Yeah, well, here I'll show you guys what's going on in the game.
It's over.
No, it's not over, but I'm laughing because according to ESPN.com's webpage, it says the Rays are up 1-0 following Randy Arozarena's 10th home run of the postseason. 10 home runs for Randy Arozarena. But, yeah, I've got the Rays winning this game as well behind baggy-eyed Blake Snell. The fact that he's a left-hander against that left-handed lineup gives you a little bit of an edge. Obviously, the Dodgers can hit anybody, whether you're a righty or a lefty. But the fact that they've got a lefty on the mound who did pitch well against him in the first round, I think helps out. The other thing is, Dave Roberts has really been, I think, misusing Dustin May and Tony Gonsolin. Gonsolin pitching today. They were both pitching like all-stars throughout the course of the regular season. Gonsolin, 2.31 ERA, 0.84 WHIP, and a strikeout per inning. But in the playoffs, 3 games, 2 starts, Why is he coming out the bullpen? 7 2/3 innings, 8 runs, 3 home runs, 7 walks. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But Dave Roberts has just been mismanaging him, and I think that he's going to get banged around again. And already, obviously, he's given up a home run. I like the Rays to win this game as well.
How about the almost steal of home last game? That was pretty sweet.
Yes, it was.
Yeah. So hopefully that's going to be the case. And, coming up on Thursday, we'll do a lot of Michigan State, as we'll be just a couple days from the backyard brawl. And we'll see if Champ has recovered at all to, put his head up after not only losing the Penn State game, but also losing his bet, where he had it all there for a second.
Yeah, we're going to do a big Penn State versus Ohio State preview? Don't think so. Not anymore.
I think we'll talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, how about for the major wager, whatever the line is, bet Ohio State.
What do you think the line is? The line out? Probably.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. I don't know what it is.
9? What is it? 9?
90?
I don't know what it is. 90. Well, they're going to hang 100 on Michigan, so you'll do better than that. All right, for Brian Chapman, I'm Dennis Fithian. Thanks for watching. And we'll be wearing our Halloween costumes on Thursday as well. So make sure you tune in at 7:30.
They got respect around the state. When that light turns red, so don't sleep on these dudes. Just invite your friends to cut your nap short and tip your cap for and sit back for the Fifth chapter.
Halloween edition.
Dennis Fithian. When they open their mouths, they spit in the facts, bro. This ain't even optional, man. You just have to tune into YouTube to watch the broadcast or download it to your phone to peep the podcast. They mix laughter, they get after. It's all